Hello and welcome to this episode of the podcast. This is the podcast where we talk to business owners and entrepreneurs about difficult times they've had to push through. On this episode, we have David Kaity. Now, David Kaity is the author of the book Real Estate Agents Don't Sell Homes, and that was quite interesting, the discussion we have around that book and that ethos, as well as the owner of business Revolutionary Real Estate. We talk about a ton of things in this episode about the challenging times David's had in business over the last couple of years, but I want to start off by giving you a sneak peek of how, for him, referrals weren't all they were cracked up to be.
You know, when someone's referring you, obviously they're enthusiastic about that referral and they believe in it. But some of those people that they were referring us to weren't entirely across the process, and it wasn't what they thought it would be.
Okay.
So that had its own challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And then as our website started having traction, then we had people, approach us, from a normal Google search. But again, at that stage, we didn't have our avatar defined, and therefore our message was not right.
Mm-hmm.
So we were attracting people with the wrong message.
Mm-hmm.
And that had its own challenges.
Yeah, so what were they? That's interesting. Have you got an example of that?
Obviously people who thought that they were getting a full service real estate agent for $5,000.
Sure.
No such thing. So that was a big challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to really fine tune our communication and what we're saying to our ideal client. And I think we just nailed that recently.
Right.
After almost 2 years in business.
2 years.
This is staggering for me.
Yeah. So were you doing any outreach in the beginning? Because you talk about the referrals, right?
Yeah.
And I straight away think of, it seems like to rely on that seems from the outside that would be tough because, as you said, you don't sell a home that often. So, and those people who you've already worked with, they may or may not know someone who's going to sell a home anytime soon, right?
Absolutely.
As opposed to referring a restaurant, which, they'll probably go out for tea in the next month, maybe.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's a timing thing as well. And to complicate things further, the clearer we defined our avatar, the harder it was to know where to find them.
Okay.
Because it was such a specific individual that they don't congregate as such. So it was really hard to know, well, where are they? Where am I going to dangle the carrot? So I thought that things would get easier after defining your avatar, but not in this case.
Okay.
So once we got that message clear, then we're able to launch more specific Facebook ads, more specific Google AdWord campaigns, and that started gaining traction.
Hello and welcome to the Be The Push podcast. My name is Jack Ferguson and I'm going to be sharing with you stories of how business owners and entrepreneurs had to push through the hard times in their careers. We're going to be discussing the lessons learned from these experiences while arming you with actionable advice so you can be the push when you need it most. Show notes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast and clicking on the relevant episode link. Let's get started. So we have that story coming up amongst many others in this episode. That story is about how David took 2 years to define his perfect customer or perfect avatar, as he says, and what that looked like, what that journey looked like, how he went about it, how it was frustrating at times, how it looks now that he's got that person or that ideal customer defined. We also talk about his book. Now, I couldn't get someone on the podcast who wrote a book called Real Estate Agents Don't Sell Homes without talking about it to no end, basically. It was a great conversation. David busts a lot of the myths about real estate, and I found that quite interesting. So although this is the podcast where we talk about getting through the tough times in business, if you are looking to sell a home anytime soon, this episode will help you out a lot as well, and I really hope you enjoy it. Let's get underway. Here comes the discussion with David. All right, so today we're here with David Kaity, who is Managing Director of Revolutionary Real Estate and the author of Real Estate Agents Don't Sell Homes. So, shots fired, David. I'm looking forward to talking about the book. How are you going?
Yeah, very well. Thank you for having me, Jack. Really appreciate it.
No worries. All right, so you're a business owner now. Where did it all start for you? Did you start What was your first job out of school?
Even before I left school, it was washing cars at a dealership not too far from where I went to school.
Right. And where'd you go to school?
John Paul College.
Okay. Where's that?
It's in Daisy Hill in Logan.
Okay, in Brisbane.
In Brisbane, yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And so, what was your first job out of school?
First job out of school, it actually relates back to this car yard where I was asked by the finance manager to come and join them. So this was actually out of uni, more so than out of school. And so I did, and so my career in finance started. I sort of just dropped into it, I guess.
Yeah. And why finance?
I guess money and numbers always interested me.
Yeah. Were you good at maths in school?
No.
Oh, really? Okay. There you go.
Thankfully, it doesn't involve any trigonometry or anything like that. So
right.
It was an easier side to the numbers then.
Yeah. Do you like the factual side of the numbers?
I do.
Because I love the numbers because you can't argue with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that's subjective stuff. Yeah.
That's right. Although I have gravitated more towards that these days, but still love the numbers.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So you got a job in finance. How long did that last for?
Much longer than it should have.
Right. Why?
Because I always had this entrepreneurial urge from a very young age, and that's all I knew that I had. I had no idea where it was going to lead me or what specific, harebrained scheme I was going to jump headfirst into. Yeah. But I had no inspiration, no spark. So I spent over 10 years in finance.
Right. You're saying that as if it's a
jail sentence?
It's a little, yeah.
Kind of feels like that.
Right.
I feel a little bit like I let myself down for not seeking out, that spark, just waiting for it to come to me. I realised much later in life that the sparks don't just come. You've got to do stuff to encounter that spark, and that's eventually what happened. And
how did you know you were entrepreneurial? When did you actually say to yourself that, I shouldn't be doing finance, in finance, I should be doing my own venture? Or did you know when you were young, or when did you first know that, kind of got the inkling to be a business owner? Yeah,
I knew that before I got into finance.
Right.
So from a young age, I was good with money. I remember back, I guess even in high school, I was selling lollies in the lunch break, and always looking for a way to make a buck. Did silly things like carry people's books for them because we had a lot of books to carry between classes. So did
what was the going rate for that?
I think it was $5 a day.
Oh, a day. I was about to say per carry was nice money, but
hey, this isn't in the 90s, so
yeah, right. Okay, so not too bad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So things like that.
Wow.
Things like that.
Wow. So, one of my pet peeves is people who aren't good with their money.
Yeah.
Does that annoy you too?
Yes, it does.
I get so annoyed with people who aren't good with finance, personal finance, because I think it's one of those areas that you've got no excuse anymore.
Yeah.
Because you can actually take yourself out of the equation.
Yes.
You can automate. When I get paid on payday, I can automate $100 to a savings account, for example, or $200. Or if I'm that bad, I can ask someone to open an account for me that they won't touch. I send it to them every week. Take me out of the equation.
Correct. There's no excuse anymore, whether it's technology or a trusted advisor or friend or whatever.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Agreed.
So it's interesting we went here because now I want to know why do you think a lot of people in general are bad at personal finance?
I think more people than not. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree.
And why do you think that is?
I think it's that short-sightedness. And I think most people, want to splash out on the good things now and live it up now rather than being able to enjoy it later and squirrel away a little bit now. Yeah, so I think it's that lacking of delayed gratification.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's one of the determinants of success from what I've heard. Forgot where I heard or read this, but apparently having that ability for delayed gratification is one of the determinants of success.
Yeah, I believe it. And I also find, though, that I think it's just a case of not putting in the 15 minutes a week to just look at what you spent your money on. I mean, it's seriously 15 minutes
absolutely.
that you can keep yourself accountable. We've got internet banking now.
Yeah.
You can look back through, Oh, wow. I spent $250
Yeah.
at restaurants this week.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I really happy with that?
Yeah,
you know?
no. And look, it doesn't have to be budgeting. I know a lot of people hate budgeting, and I never got budgeting. What I did, my wife and I, for a number of years, we had a little book in which we wrote down what we spent each day, down to cents. And at the end of each week, we got to, and it was in categories, right? So fuel, mortgage repayments, whatever you spent money on. We had broad categories. And at the end of each week, month, we got to see what we were spending money on. And if things got out of hand, then we slapped ourselves around and adjusted our course.
But you have to face it. That's the thing.
Exactly.
A lot of people won't.
Yes, and I think it starts with facing it. You don't have to budget.
No,
just keep track of where the money's going.
Yeah, because the thing with budgeting too is I wanted to get into this space for a while. It just frustrated the hell out of me, so I got out of there.
Yes.
But the thing with budgeting is it's something that might happen, whereas if you look at what you spent, that's what did happen.
Absolutely.
So I actually think the reflection is like I agree, it's a lot more important than the planning ahead. So
exactly.
I've got a word for these type of people. I call them hacks. If you're bad with money, you're a hack.
You're a hack. Okay.
Yeah. So
I like that. I'll adopt that if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it. Hopefully a lot of people do. It just annoys me to no end. I just think there's no excuse. A lot of things there's at least a behavioural reason,
Yeah, but look, I'm not as annoyed by them as you are. Okay. There's a benefit that I draw from this through another weird little hobby/venture of mine, which is buying and selling cars. And they're all new, practically new, year and a half, 2 years old, under factory warranty. I've got a list of criteria that I need to meet, but they're all bought from people who were bad with money. They got into the car, they liked it, it enticed them, and they found out a year and a half later that they can't afford the repayments. So they need to convert the metal to cash, and that's where I come in. Obviously, I don't give them exactly what they want, but I don't hold a gun to their head, and then I sell it for what it's worth.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
How many cars a year do you sell?
It used to be in the teens, but
right.
Now I've cut back. So I've got a car that I drive for 12 months, and then I sell it for what I bought it for, and then I sell another 2 or 3 to cover the costs of fuel, rego, insurance, maintenance, and the rest of the expenses. So
clever.
Motoring is free for me.
Right. And so how long have you been doing that for?
About 2.5, 3 years.
Oh, right. Okay. And how did that idea come about?
It started with my appreciation for cars.
Right.
As I said, I worked at that dealership, and that's where it didn't start. It started much earlier than that. My first word was car, actually. But I've always liked cars, and I just wanted to find a way to be able to drive the latest models without the expense that comes with owning a car. And that's what this allows me to do.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Might have to adopt that myself. You can steal my hacks word and I'll steal your car strategy. Deal?
Absolutely.
All right. So you worked for about 10 years in finance.
Yes.
What next?
And then property was another passion of ours with my wife and I. And we had an investment property, but it was more along the lines of the buy, hold and pray strategy, which doesn't qualify as a strategy as far as I'm concerned. So we realised that and wanted to become more active in the property game. So we got some education and thought that starting out with renovations would be a good way to start.
Oh, right. Yep.
So
did you buy the house and then renovate it? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. At that stage, yeah.
So you flipped the house, effectively?
Not quite,
okay.
Because we did have a tenant in the first one for a little bit. So we did a lot of research, spent 6 months just getting an understanding for the area we were looking in. So it's 6 months worth of Saturdays, every Saturday, looking at 6 to 13, sometimes 15 homes each Saturday.
Wow.
I think our record was about 15 in one day. So we'll never get those weekends back, but nonetheless, as a result of that research or study or analysis, we ended up buying well, and then proceeded to make all the mistakes thereafter.
Right, and what are those mistakes?
Overcapitalising,
okay.
In one broad term. We spent too much. we should have stuck to cosmetic renos, and it turned into a hybrid of structural and cosmetic. We chose the wrong builder, signed the wrong contract, made a lot of mistakes.
Oh, wow, okay.
As I said, all the mistakes you can imagine.
Right. Is it good to get them out of the way in the first property, though?
Absolutely. And now I cherish these mistakes because had we not have made them, we wouldn't be in the business that we're in now. So as a result of those mistakes, we were looking at a loss of 20 grand on what was supposed to turn us a profit.
Right.
And so it kind of forced us to consider a private sale or to exclude the agent from the equation. And the only reason we're confident enough to give it a go was because during those 6 months of Saturdays, we met well over 100 agents. And we got to know what they were doing right, wrong, weren't doing, were doing, should have been doing, shouldn't have been doing. And we knew we could do it better, despite that it was a very sharp learning curve.
I can imagine, yeah.
And we made a lot of mistakes again, mistakes we'd never make now. But we got out with our skin and didn't make a loss on that property. So we turned that 20 grand loss into a we got our money back.
Right. So was this your full-time job at the time? Were you buying these houses and...
No. So with this particular one, I was still in my corporate career. So my last full-time job was as a senior credit risk analyst.
And numbers stuff?
Yeah, again, numbers stuff, exactly. And my wife was working for an insurance broker. So both had corporate jobs. But we just couldn't wait to throw them in. And so we were doing this in the mornings and the evenings, on the weekends. That's what took our time.
Right. And I assume this is where the idea for revolutionary real estate came along?
Absolutely.
Right. So tell me about the moment that you thought to yourself, maybe there's something in this.
Well, it was after we sold that property without an agent, and then friends and family, and their friends and family started asking us how we did it, and so we guided them through the process and fine-tuned our approach on those journeys. And I don't know after how many house it was, we had an epiphany, and it was a big revelation for us. And it was that a property can't be sold. Not allowed to happen.
That's interesting.
Make it happen.
Yeah. Okay.
So you've got to follow the process. Doesn't matter what
Right.
you're selling, it can only be
Selling it
bought.
Right.
No, you
Okay.
can't. I know it sounds
Okay.
like semantics.
You were
but
just making
it's
it
not.
easier for a buyer to
Can you
buy.
explain it?
Right.
So you can't say
if
anything to
you've
sell
ever bought
to sell a property or to convince someone to buy.
Okay.
There's no sweet talking. There's no swaying. There's no convincing. There's no arguing. They either like it or they don't.
Yeah. I've always been so skeptical about what can someone who's showing you a property in the 15 minutes or half an hour they have for you, how much of an impact can that really have?
Absolutely. And if you ask anyone who's bought a home, what made you buy it? They'll list things like, oh, they had the right number of bedrooms, right number of bathrooms, it was in the right area, I could afford it, friends live down the road, whatever. Nobody mentions real estate agent. Because a real estate agent doesn't sell homes. And I'm not picking on them. Because you can't sell a home. I can't sell a home.
I can so.
I like that attitude, Jack. I like that attitude.
I'll prove you wrong, David.
Sounds like there's a book in you as well.
Yeah. I'm going to say Jack. Volume 2. Real estate agents don't sell homes, but Jack can. It's going to be the second volume.
I like it. I'll be the first one to read it, Jack.
Cool. All right. So you okay? So a real estate agent can't sell a home, and so now you think let's get into. So you've done this a few times for people at this stage. You've assisted them with selling their houses, and then now you decided let's make this a business.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when your family and friends are walking away with 10, 20, 30 grand more than they otherwise would, you think, well, there's more people in the world than just your immediate family and friends, and others could benefit from this. And even if you charge something for it, there's still plenty left over.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the potential difference between doing it the traditional way versus doing it the way that you're suggesting?
Mainly money. So for me, it's the money.
How much money are we talking? It can vary. So
exactly. So I like to define the results we achieve as not necessarily the highest selling price, because that's what people not everyone, but that's what a lot of people shoot for. But that's only half the story. There's no point in achieving top dollar if it's going to cost you a truckload of money.
Yeah.
So if it's going to cost you, $5,000 in marketing fees and 20 grand in commissions, then it's essentially negated any result that the agents achieve for you in terms of achieving top dollar.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to achieve that top dollar at the lowest possible cost.
Right. So the metric is profit, basically, is what you're saying.
It's what you walk away with in your pocket.
Yeah.
That's the way I like to term it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So revenue in your pocket.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The folding stuff. That's the only thing that matters.
Right. So you started this company now, and we talk about on this podcast what the challenges were and the hard times that we've gone through as business owners, entrepreneurs, professionals. You got a couple of stories for us?
Yes. Well, when you're launching something brand new that people aren't even aware of, they have no idea that it exists, it's very hard to attract customers initially. So the first challenge was defining exactly who this person is, who is their ideal customer, and it was much harder than I thought. This took us almost 2 years to define.
Wow,
much longer than it should have, and so that was a real challenge. And I've only just gained a full grasp on that, I think. So that was one huge challenge.
And at what point, just if we can just delve into that a bit, at what point did you realize that I don't know who I'm selling to?
When I had people not being turned on by the idea of walking away with 10, 20, 30 grand more in their pocket.
Yeah.
I mean, this was... I couldn't compute this. My mind short-circuited.
Yeah.
How can you not orgasm at that thought, honestly? But they didn't. And not everyone's after that. And I realized that people have different different needs and wants. Some people want a quick sale. Ironically, our method actually achieves a quicker sale. But anyway, some people want a quick sale. So they don't want to go through some of the steps that we recommend to them, because yes, they do take time, but overall the result is achieved quicker. Anyway, so quick sale. Some people just want to achieve top dollar, even if it means at a cost of 20, 30 grand.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
Other people want convenience. They just don't want to know about it. They don't want to know about it. They just want to outsource the whole thing.
Yep.
To me, this is like outsourcing the raising of your kids. Don't have kids if you're going to outsource that thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is such a big asset. It's such a big transaction. You do this maybe 3 times in your life.
Yep.
Throw everything at it. Yeah, so...
I don't think your assumption's unreasonable to think that, people are going to want another 20 or 30 grand. I think that's a completely reasonable assumption to make.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. But for some people, it's not reasonable.
Right.
Or they want different things. And what complicated things further was that our target client, I guess, or our ideal client, is not a demographic.
Right.
It's a psychographic.
Okay.
So we can't define them by age. It could be a 30-something-year-old upgrading from their first property. It could be, a retiree moving into a retirement home, and anything in between. So it's definitely not age-related. And so we started looking at the psychographics, and we found that it's more the way somebody thinks, and who they are, and what's important to them. So firstly, to them, it has to be important how much they pocket, which is a combination of what they sell for and what it costs. They don't mind being involved in the process a little bit. As a matter of fact, they probably would prefer that. They don't want to outsource it to someone. Convenience is not necessarily their highest priority, and they care more about a result than how to get there. And that's good because our process is unusual, but it gets results. So it was just hard to grasp this initially.
Yeah. I think we all can fall into that trap though, can't we? When we launch a product or start a new business, and what a no-brainer this product is or this service is. Everyone's gonna want it. At least a lot of people are gonna want it. You're mad not to. But we're looking at it from our perspective,
Absolutely.
Right? So
exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm shocked to hear what you're saying about the fact that people didn't want that extra 20 or 30 grand.
No.
So when how were you getting in touch with these people originally?
Well, that's
in the beginning.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, it was in the beginning. It was very haphazard.
Mm-hmm.
So we had referrals, which are great, but when someone's referring you, obviously they're enthusiastic about that referral and they believe in it. But some of those people that they were referring us to weren't entirely across the process, and it wasn't what they thought it would be.
Okay.
So that had its own challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And then as our website started having traction, then we had people, approach us, from a normal Google search. But again, at that stage, we didn't have our avatar defined, and therefore our message was not right.
Mm-hmm.
So we were attracting people with the wrong message.
Mm-hmm.
And that had its own challenges.
Yeah, so what were they? That's interesting. Have you got an example of that?
Obviously people who thought that they were getting a full service real estate agent for $5,000.
Sure.
No such thing. So that was a big challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to really fine tune our communication and what we're saying to our ideal client. And I think we just nailed that recently.
Right.
After almost 2 years in business.
2 years.
This is staggering for me.
Yeah. So were you doing any outreach in the beginning? Because you talk about the referrals, right?
Yeah.
And I straight away think of, it seems like to rely on that seems from the outside that would be tough because, as you said, you don't sell a home that often. So, and those people who you've already worked with, they may or may not know someone who's going to sell a home anytime soon, right?
Absolutely.
As opposed to referring a restaurant, which, they'll probably go out for tea in the next month, maybe.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's a timing thing as well. And to complicate things further, the clearer we defined our avatar, the harder it was to know where to find them.
Okay.
Because it was such a specific individual that they don't congregate as such. So it was really hard to know, well, where are they? Where am I going to dangle the carrot? So I thought that things would get easier after defining our avatar, but not in this case.
Okay.
So once we got that message clear, then we're able to launch more specific Facebook ads, more specific Google AdWord campaigns, and that started gaining traction.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we got our message sharpened, we're able to incorporate that into our website.
Mm-hmm.
And expand the content out, which is now helping us to gain traction with SEO.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now starting to really snowball, but I had no idea it would take this long.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we had the cash flow to last this time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely. They say you're crazy to start a business, and I understand exactly why that is. I know people who teach people to buy businesses and renovate them,
mm-hmm.
and in hindsight, it probably wouldn't have been a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
But this is more than just a business for us. This is a calling. It's we're on a mission.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's interesting. So what's another challenge you guys have been through building this company? Yeah.
So apart from identifying the avatar or our ideal client, and then finding out how to target them, I guess. The other one was educating them, because this is, as I said, it's quite a new process.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
Ever.
So we actually trademarked the term assisted private sale.
Okay.
Because that's what it is,
mm-hmm.
essentially. We're not real estate agents. People, again, they short circuit when they hear me say that. Well, how can you sell a home if you're not a real estate agent? Well, I don't sell a home, and neither can they, and neither can you. So educating them was a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Still is. But my client meetings could last for 3 hours plus and more. And in order to avoid that, I thought, well, I need to convey this message somehow. More clearly, more concisely, and not just by me talking to them or at them for 3 hours. So I decided to write a book, and that's how I gave birth to Real Estate Agents Don't Sell Homes.
Mm-hmm.
And I give that to every prospective client, and I almost demand that they read it.
Wow.
Because I mean, it's written in a conversational style. It's not War and Peace. It's not going to win any literary awards, but it's not meant to. It's meant to be read. So after an hour and a half, most of the myths of the industry will be busted for you, and you'll be in the right frame of mind to ask the right questions.
And you're telling me that you wrote this book not to sell it. You wrote this book almost as a partner in the sale. It's assisting you to sell to clients, and that's its job.
Exactly.
Right.
This is the education piece. And so this is what I use to deliver the content that people need to know, that need to understand this. But it's, as well as being entertaining, I think it's very enlightening for most people. And it really lifts the veil off this industry for them. I mean, some of the stuff in there is, things that we've been conditioned to believe over decades and generations, which are no longer true. Yeah.
And so, would you sell it?
Would I sell the book?
Yeah. So, would you put it on Amazon, or would you put it on? Would you sell it locally, or?
Look, you're right in the fact that I didn't write it to sell it.
Yep.
I tried to use it as a lead magnet on my website, and selling it for $7. That was a disaster.
Right.
It turns out people don't read books. Certainly not if they're in an ebook format. So I scrapped that as a lead magnet, and I'm just giving it away for free. But having said that, my publisher made it easy. Well, they actually helped me to put it on Amazon. So it is on Amazon.
Okay.
You can buy it on Amazon if you want.
Cool.
Or you can just tap me on the shoulder for a free copy.
What's it selling for on Amazon?
I think there's two versions. One is obviously the ebook. I think it's somewhere around $4 or something like that. And the hard copy is 20 something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So So do you give them that book when they come in? So when they physically come to meet you, you say, "I'll tell you some of the stuff, and the book's going to take care of the rest," or how do you approach that?
Yeah. So I prefer them to read the book. So I give them the book at the first meeting, and there's generally more than one meeting. The first one is just sort of a meet and greet. They can get a feel for me, put a face to the name, and I don't linger too long because I like to let the book, generate its own questions. So I come back and we have another conversation, whether it's face to face or Skype. They can then ask those questions. Yeah, so that's how it works. I mean, I can send them an electronic copy if they want to.
Yeah.
So I don't have a hard and fast rule about how I distribute.
Okay. So it's called Real Estate Agents Don't Sell Homes. How popular are you in the real estate industry?
Well, look, at the moment, I'm still flying under the radar.
Okay. Yeah.
So I haven't stepped on too many toes.
Right.
But
because I read the title and I thought, shots fired. Boom. Real estate agents don't sell homes. I mean, I'm imagining a lot of them won't appreciate that sentiment.
Yeah, of course. But surely if you're an intelligent real estate agent, you'll know that you're not selling the home. The ones that truly believe it are either incompetent, egotistic, or they have no understanding of the process. Yeah, because it's not them that sells the home.
Right. And so has any real estate agent approached you or talked to you or at all?
Surprisingly, I've had people, agents, wanting to reach out on LinkedIn and Facebook, and I'm confused by it. I don't know what. There must be a hidden.
Because you hate them.
Yeah,
no, I'm joking.
Yeah. Look, it's interesting. I thought I did, but I don't think it's their fault. It's not their fault, and I personally know some great real estate agents. People I'd trust my firstborn with, but I'd still never get them to sell my home because they just charge too much. It's the industry. It's the industry and the Office of Fair Trading. I mean, come on, it's within 4 days, and after spending $600, anybody with a pulse can become an agent.
Okay.
Right. So after the oldest profession, this is the easiest profession to enter.
Right.
So, and if you look at the at surveys, it's traditionally been the least trusted, one of the least trusted professions in Australia. It's in the third spot from the bottom.
Okay. Wow.
I forgot who's underneath. But,
I was about to ask. Yeah.
Yeah.
Podcast host. Right down the bottom.
No, I doubt it.
Okay. So, all right. So I'm gonna read. What are some of these myths that you're talking about?
Yeah, well, the first one we've covered, obviously, is that they sell homes, and they don't. The second is that you need a local area expert to be able to guide you, because they're the only ones that know the prices, and they're the only ones that can achieve the highest price for you. But being the local area expert, while it may give you market knowledge, which is great, it's not the same thing as achieving top dollar. Because most people don't realise that real estate agents don't have an incentive to get you top dollar. And that brings me to the other myth, which is that they negotiate the highest price for you, which is another reason people engage them.
I've seen a Freakonomics thing. Have you seen? Yeah, you're going to talk about that? I'll link to this in the show notes. So, but tell us about it.
Yeah, spot on. So there was a study by, I think, Stephen Levitt, I think his name is, who co-authored Freakonomics, where they found that real estate agents in the States tend to have their homes on the market for longer than what they recommend for their clients, and they achieve a higher price. And the reason for this is that, they found that commissions are not just a lack of an incentive for an agent to achieve top dollar, but it's actually a disincentive for them to achieve top dollar. And the reason for that is, if you think about a $15,000 commission that an agent would make, here in Australia, for them to fight for an extra 10 grand for you at 2.5% commission, that's $250. Right, their cut of that is $125 after they've shared it with the agency. Now, how much incentive does $125 give you to fight for an extra 10 when you could risk losing a $15,000 commission? So on the flip side, an agent loses $125 in order to convince you to take 10 grand less, so they can take their 15 grand commission sooner. That's how commissions work, and agents are incentivized to get a quick sale and not a high price.
Is that across the board? No one's thought to bring in a different commission structure, so that's.
Oh, I mean, some people are toying with it at the edges, to have some kind of a stepped or a scaled structure where they get, if they get achieve above a certain sell price, they get a high commission or something like that. But it's tinkering at the edges, and it's a terribly unfair thing if you think about it, a commission, because if an agent does an incredible job of selling a $500,000 home, all right, they put everything into it. They do everything to the best of their ability. That agent will take home less money than an agent who's marketing an $800,000 property and doing an absolutely terrible job. How is that fair? How is that structure fair? And if you think about it, for the rest of us, if we want to make more money, we either need to put in longer hours, we need to take on more work, we need to become more efficient or give extra value. For an agent, they just wait for house prices to go up. The commissions don't need to change.
Right. Who assigns the agent to the house?
Well, you enlist the agent.
Yeah.
So you pick the face.
Gotcha. Okay. I've never sold a house, obviously.
Yeah. Well, at least you'll be well equipped to know how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's quite a number of myths. I mean, the other is one of the popular ones is the database of buyers. People think that it's gold. You go to an agent for their database of buyers because they're ready to go. Right? They've got the money. They want your house. But if you think about how this database comes about, when an open home is held, people put their name and email address on a list, so they go on the database. Most people at an open home are tire kickers. So what kind of a database does that constitute? And people don't just go to one agent's open home, they go to several agents' open home. So they'll be on the database of several different agents. In addition to that, they're not waiting by the phone at home for the agent to call them. They're looking online. So that database is not the exclusive domain of the agent.
Right. And why do these people go to these open homes and these tire kickers, as you say? It's just an interest for them.
Absolutely.
Right.
And this is the other myth. This segues beautifully into the other myth, which is that open homes are the best way to sell a home.
Okay.
They're terrible.
Really?
Absolutely. So they attract your neighbours, people from down the road, passers-by, people who have absolutely no intention of buying a home.
They just want to have a look in your house.
Absolutely. They want to go through your junk drawers. That's all they want. So keep that in mind when you're next considering an open home. So theft is an issue which is never addressed by the industry. But if you think about it, it's convenient for the agent. It's not about you selling your home. It's about the agent. Why? Well, it's much more convenient to open the home once each week, right, on a Saturday morning, rather than show several people at several different times. So that's one of the reasons it's done. The other reason is because it's classically one of the ways that agents have prospected for the next client. Right? When you're selling a home, or when you're buying a home, some people need to sell one beforehand. So when you come to an open home, the agent asks you, well, do you need to sell? Are you selling? And that's the next prospective customer. So that's why they send you away as the homeowner, because they don't want to see you. They don't want you to see them prospecting for the next client on your marketing dollars.
Wow. Very sneaky.
Yeah, indeed. And this is just scratching the surface. Open homes should never be held. Inspections by appointment are the way to go.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So someone has to approach you to...
Absolutely. Well, they self-qualify, don't they? If they call you or email you wanting to see the property, first of all, there'll be a lot fewer people doing this, rightly so, because it's everyone who is not the tie kicker at an open home who'd be emailing and calling you.
So neighbour John doesn't do that?
No, exactly. Too much effort, right?
I think he's giving the game away a bit, isn't he? It's like, you're next door to me. You don't, yeah.
Exactly.
I know you got no money.
Exactly. Spot on. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so people who come to an inspection by appointment, they self-qualify. And they're much more interested. They're not going to lowball you. They're a much better prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So where does lowballing occur at the open homes?
Not necessarily at the open home. It can be, but lowballers try. They probably it's something that they would do in private. But it's interesting. When coming back to the open home bit. One other reason not to hold one is when you've got 80-90% tie kickers who have no intention of buying a home.
It's a high percentage.
Absolutely. And they come in pairs, so husband and wife, partners, whatever. And obviously they tend to be vocal, they talk to each other, and they point out all the negative things about a home, and every home has something negative about it. But your ideal buyer doesn't notice that because they fall in love with the feel of the home. Or rather, they didn't notice until it was pointed out to them by these tie kickers within earshot. That's why you should never let tie kickers in the one space with your prospective buyer. And inspections by appointment solve that problem.
Wow. Incredible. So what about auctions? I've always wondered about auctions because I don't really get them.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you as a buyer would go. Actually, that's where I get confused, as why you go to an auction. And I can sort of get the psychology of maybe if you've got a lot of people interested in the place, they're going to, as a seller, they're going to, well, this is my theory anyway, they're going to bump each other up, and compete against each other. And maybe they come in with, we're going to buy this for 500K, but they end up spending 530 because Jane over there is not going to take this house off me, right?
That's the theory, right?
Okay.
And this is how agents sell it to you.
Yeah.
And this is what... Yeah.
Yeah. Burst my bubble.
Yes. So this is another myth, actually. I've devoted a chapter to this in the book. Auctions are terrible. They benefit the agent and they benefit the buyer, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. So how does it benefit the agent? Very simple. Auctions have a finite date, and there's usually a very intensive marketing campaign leading up to that. And intensive translates to dollars. Right, they make a lot of money on the campaign leading up to an auction. So this is one benefit to the agent. The other benefit is that when you buy at auction, it's not subject to finance, right? So there's no waiting for a month for the commission. You get it the next day.
Oh,
it's beautiful,
right?
For the agent.
Mm-hmm.
Why it benefits the buyer? Well, I'll come to that in a roundabout way. Imagine if you've got 3 couples, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they fall in love with the same home. This home has gone to auction. Let's say a valuer has valued it at $600,000, right? And these 3 couples have different budgets. So it doesn't matter what happens at the auction. The bank's told them this is what you can borrow, right? So doesn't matter how heated an auction gets, there's only so much you can borrow as a buyer. Okay, this is what people need to remember. So when you go there with different budgets, 3 different people fall in love with it, different budgets. Auction kicks off, let's say at $550. Keeps going up. Sorry, I should have mentioned. First couple has a budget of, let's say, $580.
Mm-hmm.
Second couple has a budget of $600,
Mm-hmm.
and the third has fallen in love with this property so much that they're willing to pay $620. Right, so it gets to $580. First couple's out. Keeps on going. Getting hotter and hotter. It reaches $600. Second couple reaches their limit. They're looking at each other, tears in their eyes, knowing that they're going to have to kiss this house goodbye. And what does the third couple have to do to win the house?
Bid.
How much?
610.
Not even that.
605.
601 sometimes.
601. Okay.
602, 605, whatever it may be.
Yep.
They'll be saving $15,000 on that purchase, or however. What they need to do to win that house is just to outbid that one competition by one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why auctions don't work, and this is why it's great for a buyer, because that third couple who was willing to pay $620 has now gotten themselves a bargain. Well, okay, it's not a bargain if you look at the valuation price, but let's say it was valued at $620, right? Then they would really have gotten a bargain.
Yep.
Yeah. So auctions don't squeeze out the last dollar from your buyers.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why you can't let the other person know. It's like playing cards with all your cards on the table face up, right? Your competition knows what you're doing. It's crazy.
So does couple A never, the 580 couple, they never go, nah, stuff it, we're going to go to 620? Like people don't.
No, that's it. They've run out of money.
Yeah.
That's it.
I would have thought people would get crazy in the moment.
They do.
Yeah, and bid beyond what they can afford.
Well, there's consequences to that.
Yeah.
So
remember when I was telling you about the hacks earlier on there?
Yeah, so I don't know if anyone's ever been in that situation where they know that they've got a hard budget of 580 and they've gone, $40,000 above that, because that's an interesting fundraising campaign, I think.
They just think, we'll figure out the last 40 later.
That's right, exactly.
Okay, so that doesn't happen. I don't know. Well, I've got more faith in humanity than people can stick to budgets sometimes.
Look, I'm sure some people overstep the mark, but the bank and the bank's limit as to what you can borrow is a pretty powerful barrier.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I want to move on to we talk about this on every podcast. It's the one question I ask every single time, and I'm going to ask it again. Mm-hmm. So what is your relationship like with self-doubt? With self-doubt? Yes.
I was going to say, like for most people. I was going to start the sentence with like for most people. It's a roller coaster, but I'm not quite sure what most people feel about this. I've always thought I haven't had too much doubt in myself over the years, because I think if I had, I would never have started this business. I would never have taken it as far as I have. So I'm feeling pretty good about my lack of self-doubt. I guess, yeah.
Right. So even early on, you didn't sort of say, this is never going to work. We can't figure this out. All the time, there was no dip in belief.
No, as I said, it is a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Even for those people who I believe have the strongest or the least amount of self-doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you're well aware, the entrepreneurial journey is a roller coaster, and everyone's going to have their ups and downs, and that is going to take a toll and take a dent out of your self-belief.
Do you have it, like when you do have those shitty days? Or shitty weeks, shitty months if you're really unlucky? Do you have any way to sort of turn off and get away from the business, mentally at least?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I play squash twice a week. I run, so I try and be fairly active. Alcohol helps sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's sport is one way to take my mind off it.
Mm-hmm. But
when I'm experiencing a dip, there's two ways you can deal with it, and I think it all comes down to how you deal with the dips. That's what sets you apart, I think, as an entrepreneur. And when you are in a dip, you can either feel down in the dumps, or you can use that as an excuse to fine tune the strategy or find a different way or burrow under or go above or through or around. So that's what I'm trying to do in the dips.
Interesting, because I've felt for me that when you go through a shitty period, I actually can handle it all right mentally. Not some moments better than others, but so I've controlled how low I get. I don't get that low usually, but then I found that kind of limits the upside as well. So when I do something really cool, I'm like, yeah, that was all right. I don't have that wow, oh my God, that was amazing type of. So I've blunted how low I go, but
I so can relate to that, Jack.
Yeah.
I really can. And when I talk about my lows, they're not slashing my wrist lows.
Yeah.
So I never get there, and therefore my highs, much like yours, I'm not euphoric. And I think it's one thing I need to change. I need to pat myself on the back more and appreciate those goals, because we all kick them as entrepreneurs. But it's easy to then move on to the next thing. You've got to stop and pat yourself on the back. And I this is an area I need to improve in.
Do you know how?
Oh God,
because I don't.
Look, I haven't found the answer yet.
Yeah.
So you're probably asking the worst person in the room.
Yeah.
I guess it's just being more conscious of it, and I think goal setting helps with that as well. So when I set a goal, obviously you write down what it is, try and be specific, time frame, and then write down a reward at the end. So once I reach it, this is what I'm going to do, whether it's a massage or whatever it is. I think that's one way to systematize if you can, the process of patting yourself on the back.
Right. I mean, I'm thinking even the last weekend I've had, I worked the whole weekend, and I wanted to overhaul all this stuff, and I did, right, but I couldn't find the right project management software that I wanted to do a few things, and I was so cranky. And I did a lot of things, and I really, I couldn't even see them.
Yeah.
By the end of the weekend, I was so mad that I couldn't find the right, I'm on 10 p.m. on Sunday night, I'm mad because I can't find this software, and the whole weekend's been a waste. Well, not really.
Absolutely.
Not really. I've there's a few. I've really got through a few barriers that I didn't know how to do it coming into the weekend, and I actually got through them over the weekend. So, I just couldn't see past where I got to. It's just achieve.
Yeah.
And I just wondered, do you consider yourself a type A personality?
I don't know what that is, but if it's what you've just described in yourself, then yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we're not so good at saying, you know what, you did all right.
Exactly.
It's not...
absolutely.
There's always the next step.
Exactly. And just recently, I can so relate to this, because just recently I received an email from a person in the government. I took part in this Mentoring for Growth program. And so I went in front of a panel, they made suggestions, etc. And it was really, really helpful. And that was on the 6th of December. And then I got an email from this lady who was organising it, and she asked me, well, how'd you go since then? And it was just over 2 months since that panel. And during that time, obviously, we had Christmas, so there was a big downtime. I had family visiting from overseas, so a lot of time was spent with them. So I was worried about what I was going to write to her and respond. But then as I sat down and I started writing... I couldn't just write a one-liner, saying, well, I had Christmas and how was yours? I actually had to write something. And as I was thinking of what I achieved over that time, despite Christmas, it was a very pleasant surprise. So I think doing that more often, not just when you get an email from someone in state government, is a useful thing to do. You know, whether it's at the end of every day, I think in your case it should be, or in my case as well, because I think we do achieve a lot more than we give ourselves credit for, and a lot more than we remember. So if you spend 5 minutes reflecting on that, I think the back patting will come as a result. Yeah,
it's probably pretty good advice for me.
Yeah, just reflecting.
Yeah. So what would you say if someone's looking to get into business, or they've been in business 6 months, 12 months, they're quite early. They're going through some tough patches. Do you have a view on whether you should stick with it or bail? Like what would tell you whether you should stick with it or bail?
I think that is the toughest question anyone that you can be asked, or the toughest question that can be asked of an entrepreneur. It's because we can be blinded by our business, that it's a no-brainer, right, as you said before. But if you're the only one that thinks that, then, well, maybe that's not the case. And how you realize that, well, I think you've got to be open and take on board criticism. I think if you test the idea well enough, and not just with your family and friends, but I think test it more widely, then I think that's a great way to find out whether you should need some serious tweaking at least, or chuck in the towel and go on to idea 2.
And is that simply talking to people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So whether you go to networking functions and events and then just talk to people about that idea, and if you get blank stares, that's not a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one avenue. You can if you're more digitally minded, you can I guess get ahead of yourself and the business with maybe a landing page and run some ads to it and see how the world responds, and just test it that way. So sell it before you create it.
Yeah. With my business, that's a step I skipped.
Okay, yeah.
The sell it part.
Now I'm just the clever one telling you this. I never did this myself, so I heard about this after I jumped head first.
I think we all did, yeah. Actually, no, I don't have an excuse, because I read a book about how to start, and I skipped that part because I didn't like the sound of that part.
Right, okay.
Yeah. How silly I was in hindsight.
Well.
But I kind of feel like a good way to learn is to get in and run. In your case, your first business is working out well. I think a lot don't. So
yes.
So get that 6-month failure out of the way.
Yeah.
You'll learn so much, and you'll come into the second venture with a clear idea of what needs to actually happen to get this thing off the ground.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to learn, because whenever I even when I teach guitar, like I used to teach guitar, and I would try and get someone to a song as quickly as possible, because they don't care about the chords and the scale and all that type of thing. And then you can go back to that stuff because you got context. But yeah, if you don't have the context of what a business is like, I don't think the theory. I think the theory is better after than before in a lot of cases.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Jump in head first. Ask questions later. I read a book. I don't know whether it's the same as yours. Ready, Fire, Aim.
Okay.
And it talks about the same thing. Start selling and then adjust later, because the market will forgive you. Don't be a perfectionist. Progress is better than perfection. And just do it. Even if something turns out to be a failure, like our first renovation project, it could be the start and the spark of a brilliant business idea. Yeah,
but how many lessons did you take from that? There would be 10, 15 lessons that you guys learned for life, right?
That was huge.
Yeah,
that was a huge learning curve for us, and a very valuable mistake. One that I would make again not anymore, but if I had my way again, I wouldn't refuse to make that mistake again.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thanks very much for being with us today, David. That was a
pleasure.
That was a great discussion, and the real estate agents are really going to love this interview. And we appreciate you coming along. Where's some places we can find you?
A few ways. Obviously, the website is a great way to find out about our philosophy and ethos. So that's www.revolutionaryrealestate.com.au. Again, something I should have thought about more at the start of the business. It's a bit too long.
The name,
it's a bit too long. And again, I think there was a touch of ego in that name.
What would you call it if you had your time over? Do you have a name?
Yeah, I have one, but it's been taken.
Okay.
It's Unreal Estate.
Unreal Estate, okay.
Yeah.
That's a TV show.
I know.
Yeah, it's a good show.
I know. Yeah, so domain's off limits, unfortunately.
Right.
But yeah, that's what I would call it now.
Okay.
So that's one way. Otherwise, Facebook, LinkedIn. Yeah.
I'll put that in the show notes. So facebook.com/revolutionary real estate, is it?
Exactly, yeah.
Cool. All right. Can any other contact details?
Well, if you want to tap me on the shoulder for a book, you can do that via phone, 0410 535 133.
Cool. All right, David. It's been fantastic. Thanks for being with us.
I really enjoyed it, Jack. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Be The Push podcast. Show notes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast and clicking on the relevant episode link. I appreciate your company and look forward to talking to you again soon.